Hello everybody, welcome to the Year 5 English Homework Review video. We're on Block 4, Week 2. This week you had 2 activities to complete on CGP Online, which was Text 8 and a comprehension, and also a punctuation quick practice test. There was also 2 activities, Test 2 and Test 6, in your CGP English Spelling, Punctuation and Grammar book.
Take approximately 10 minutes. If it takes you a little bit longer than that, that's fine. Try and see how long it does take you so you're aware of your pace through these tasks. So working as quickly and accurately as you can, number 1 says which of the following punctuation marks can be used to introduce a list. And this is a colon. If you're not sure what a colon looks like, it is literally this, like 2 full stops, one on top of the other. A semicolon is similar, but it's like a full stop and a comma. This replaces a conjunction, but it's a colon that can be used to introduce a list. Inverted commas are, of course, for speech, otherwise known as speech marks, and an exclamation mark is exactly that, used for an exclamation. Now, number 2, the passage below contains some punctuation mistakes, and your job was to write the passage out again with the correct punctuation. So let's have a look at that now. Alicia, who had been volunteering at the gallery for 3 years, led the visitors through the doorway. She paused as she gestured to a huge painting on the wall. This painting was produced in Paris in the 16th century, she explained. So what we have here are dashes to indicate a subordinate embedded clause. You can use these instead of commas or brackets. So when you're showing parenthesis, you can use dashes, commas, or brackets. So this, as you can see, the second one was missing in the original paragraph. Alicia, who had been volunteering at the gallery for 3 years, led the visitors through the doorway. Now, it's important to know that with subordinate clauses, the extra bit of information does not make sense on its own. And without it, the sentence would. So without the sentence in between the dashes, the sentence would read, Alicia led the visitors through the doorway. But by adding that extra bit of information, the subordinate clause, we give the reader a little bit more detail. We now know that Alicia had been volunteering at the gallery for 3 years. And this sentence was also missing a full stop in the original passage. She paused as she gestured to a huge painting on the wall. This painting was produced in Paris in the 16th century, she explained. We're missing a comma there. So very small things that you might not immediately notice. It's really important that you read everything as carefully as you possibly can. Number 3, where is the nearest postbox? Asked Mr. Matthews. You're asked to rewrite the sentence as reported speech. Now, there's a very big difference between direct and reported speech. This is an example of direct speech. It's exactly what the person says. Where is the nearest postbox? So this would be written inside inverted commas, as you can see, enclosing the question. Where is the nearest postbox? Now, reported speech is paraphrasing what somebody else is saying. So it's not exactly what they said, but it's explaining that Mr. Matthews asked where the nearest postbox was. So you could write it in a different way, which is why it says here in your book as well, various answers possible. But the point is that you're not including inverted commas. It's not exactly what Mr. Matthews was saying. It's somebody describing what he asked. Mr. Matthews asked where the nearest postbox was. Number 4, which of the sentences below uses commas correctly? Tick the box next to the correct answer. So remember, you're looking to see which one uses commas correctly. And that was B. With a sense of regret, Natalie declined the invitation. A comma can bring a small pause to a sentence when you're reading it, but not as strong as a full stop. So naturally, we read, with a sense of regret, Natalie declined the invitation. There's a slight pause before we continue the sentence. It's not A because we do not need the comma here. Penguins live in Antarctica, whereas polar bears live in the Arctic. There is no natural pause as we're reading. C, we do not need a comma here. The sentence should read, as a result of the disruption, the outcome was inconclusive. And we would actually put a comma after disruption. And then D, we would need a comma after dog. Paul, who owned the dog, had refused to cooperate. Number 5. The surgery will reopen tomorrow. Appointments can be made from 8 a.m. What is the name of the punctuation mark between tomorrow and appointments in the sentence above? And we just talked about this in the initial part. It's a semicolon, and this can be used to replace conjunctions. So the surgery will reopen tomorrow. Appointments can be made from 8 a.m. If that semicolon wasn't there, you might use a conjunction instead. The surgery will reopen tomorrow, so appointments can be made from 8 a.m. The surgery will reopen tomorrow and appointments can be made from 8 a.m. So you would choose an appropriate conjunction to go in that gap. But in this case, a semicolon has replaced that, so there's no need to put a conjunction there. Number 6. Controversially, the thieves' prison sentences were reduced. Rewrite the sentence, correcting any punctuation mistakes. And there weren't too many. It was literally missing an apostrophe. This is the possessive apostrophe to show that the sentence or the sentences belonged to the thieves. The thieves' prison sentences were reduced. And it goes after the S because thieves is plural. We're talking about more than one thief. If it was singular, one thief, then it would be spelt this way with an F, and the apostrophe would go before the S. So controversially, the thief's prison sentence was reduced. We changed everything to singular. But that's not the case. We're talking plural. So thieves, this is a number of thieves. It's more than one thief. Oops, that's not the right button. And their prison sentences were reduced. Controversially, there is a comma after controversially to create that pause. And number 7, which of the sentences uses apostrophes correctly? This is very important to know when apostrophes are used, and they are used for possession, omission, or contractions. Maria's opinion was that the fireman's gloves were unsatisfactory. Fireman's gloves can be purchased exclusively at specialist outlets. Research shows that fireman's gloves are virtually indestructible. The fireman's gloves had been left at the scene of the incident. So it's C. This is telling us that gloves belonging to firemen are virtually indestructible. There is no need for there to be an apostrophe here, because that would read, the fireman's glove had been left at the scene of the incident. And that makes no sense. We are missing apostrophes here. Fireman's gloves can be purchased exclusively at specialist outlets. Maria's opinion, this is a correct use of an apostrophe, and this is not, because it's not in the right place. Now, we're going to read a passage together which has some punctuation mistakes. Each numbered line has either one mistake or no mistake. So for each one, you needed to work out which group of words contains a mistake and circle the correct letter, or circle N if you don't think there was a mistake in that sentence. Last weekend, my friends and I went camping. On Saturday morning, we filled the car with everything we'd need: tents, sleeping bags, and food. So far, 8 is A. We should have a comma after weekend. B, we should have a comma. 9 is B, because we should have a comma after tents. And if you see there, after the word need, there is your colon introducing a list. Tents, sleeping bags, and food are the items on your list. When we finally got to the campsite, the journey took 5 hours. It was raining and we were all grumpy. So we started this with a bracket, which means we need to close brackets afterwards, not put a comma there. This is horrible. It's going to be a disastrous weekend, moaned my friend Harry. We are missing an apostrophe in the word it's, because it's a contraction of it is. It is going to be a disastrous weekend, moaned my friend Harry. Hurriedly, we began to assemble the tents. The instructions were ridiculously complicated, but on our 7th attempt, we finally mastered it. No mistake for line 12. We do not need a 7th and attempt to be hyphenated on line 13. Before long, the downpour had ended and we were sipping delicious mugs of hot chocolate. No need for a comma after downpour. This is more like it. I told you it would be a brilliant weekend, grinned Harry. And if you notice, looking very closely, we are missing the inverted commas or speech marks at the beginning of that sentence. Well done, everybody. Moving on to test 6 now, and we're still looking at punctuation. Starting off with writing out a passage again with the correct punctuation. Are you sure that you just want some new comics? Kyle asked. We have plenty of time to look at all of the stickers, models, bouncy balls, and posters as well. Now, reading passages aloud like this can help you if you're not too sure what the mistakes were. If you read it to yourself, you might notice, because you may have heard when I was reading, I paused naturally at certain points. So the first thing we were missing was a inverted comma, or a set of inverted commas at the beginning of the speech. Are you sure that you just want some new comics? Missing a question mark and the closure of the inverted commas. Are you sure that you just want some new comics? Kyle asked. Full stop. We have plenty of time to look at all of the stickers, comma, models, bouncy balls, and posters as well. Number 2. What is wrong with the sentence? Although the sheep belonged to Nathan, the cows were Sheila's. You had to tick the box next to the correct answer. Is it A, the comma is in the wrong place? Should there be a colon? Is the apostrophe in the wrong place? Or does Nathan need an apostrophe? And the answer is that the apostrophe is in the wrong place and should be before the S to show that the cows belong to Sheila. Sheila is singular, so the apostrophe should be before the S there. Now we're going to have a look at a passage with punctuation mistakes, each numbered line having one or no mistake. Circling the correct letter each one. I'm going to reveal the whole passage together for this. The gravel driveway crunched as Gavin drove up in his new automobile. We should, of course, have a capital letter for Gavin. He was pleased with his purchase. The salesman had given him a good discount. What have you done? Demanded Gavin's wife when he got out of the vehicle. We're missing inverted commas at the start there of what have you done? Don't you like it? He asked. I had to buy it. I've wanted one for years. We're missing an apostrophe in don't. Don't is a contraction of do not. So we should have an apostrophe between the N and the T. A smile crept across her face as she replied, But, Gavin, it's an ice cream van. D is incorrect here because ice and cream could perhaps be hyphenated as opposed to cream and van. Gavin could tell she wasn't really angry. He smiled warmly and began planning his route for tomorrow in his head. He had an awful lot of ice cream to sell. There should have been a full stop after angry there. And number 10, you're asked to rewrite the sentence correcting any punctuation mistakes. Beth, the new driver, was hungry. She hadn't eaten since lunchtime. So here we need some commas. This is a subordinate clause without the new driver. It would read, Beth was hungry. But instead, with the commas, it says, Beth, the new driver, was hungry. She hadn't eaten since lunchtime. And again, you could have used brackets or dashes to show this parenthesis. Look at that, shouted Nisha to her brother excitedly. Another sentence to rewrite. We needed an exclamation mark to show that Nisha was excited with what she said. The exclamation mark does not need to be at the end of the sentence. It needs to be within the inverted commas because it's part of Nisha's speech. Look at that, shouted Nisha to her brother excitedly. A regular full stop is all we need at the end. And number 12, which of these sentences uses commas correctly? This was C. Yesterday, before drawing a picture, Mandy sharpened her pencils. Can you hear the natural pause created by the commas when you're reading? Yesterday, before drawing a picture, Mandy sharpened her pencils. But you must look closely at each of the options. A starts off correctly. The lorry, which was speeding, crashed into the barrier. We do not need the comma after crash. That's the error. Miss Oren liked to draw, paint, read and run in her free time. So the commas are correct, separating the items in the list, but we don't need one after run. Same with D, we don't need one after run. Get out of the way, shouted James as he ran down the street. So some of the commas in those other sentences were correct, but there were some that were wrong. So you have to look at them very carefully. And if it helps, read the sentence aloud or in your head to see if you can hear how it should read, how it sounds with those natural pauses. 13. Which of the sentences uses apostrophes correctly? And move the box. This was: there wasn't room on Ross's cast for all the staff's signatures. The dogs won't wear their harnesses because they're uncomfortable. Your magic tiara must have been made by a witch's spell. The companies wouldn't stock Matt's new product. So again, some of them aren't correct, but some of them are used in error as well. A is the correct one. Wasn't is a contraction of was not. There was not room on Ross's cast. This shows that the cast belonged to Ross. For all the staff's signatures. So staff is the collective term for a group of people. Therefore, that is the plural word, and the apostrophe goes before the S. It's a little bit confusing because with Ross, you could put the apostrophe after the second S and then not add another one, and that would still show that it was belonging to Ross. So there are two ways of recording that one, but all the apostrophes used in sentence A are correct. The dogs won't wear their harnesses. Won't is correct, but harnesses is not. It should be ES at the end as a suffix. Your magic tiara must have been made by a witch's spell. Your should be your spelled like this. And the companies wouldn't stock Matt's new product. So the apostrophe here in Matt's should be before the S, and we don't need one for. That's to the end of our homework review video this week. Well done, everybody. As usual, if you have any questions at all, then please do feel free to email your tutors, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.